Hey everyone, it's been a long time, but we're finally finishing our Generation 1 Battling Explained series after basically a whole year. Yeah, that's
Maybe.
Anyways, in this video, we're going to go over that all-crucial area of battling, the moves themselves, that shape the metagame into what it is and what it has been for 2 decades. So, without further ado, let's get right to it. Believe it or not, but the iconic Toxic wasn't used at all in its debut generation. It was too easy to stall out and not take significant damage from, since it reverts back from bad poison to regular poison once a Pokemon is switched out. Paralysis through and through was more effective at getting KOs. Yellow Magic is at its most prominent in this generation. With everything being so tanky, it aids a lot in getting KOs, from full paralysis kicking in at inopportune moments. Status absorption and keeping key Pokemon unparalyzed is a big part of managing red, blue, and yellow battles because of how powerful paralysis is. If a Pokemon can use it, it will. See the niche usage of Hypno, for example. Sleep is a key status, and all of these moves have inherent differences from the rest of the generation just because you have to waste a turn just to wake up. Much of the lead and early game revolves around getting it off because of how powerful Sleep is. Exeggutor is the most consistent sleeper and finds itself on nearly every team. So does Chansey, but it usually can't fit the unreliable Zheng, although when it pulls it off the effects are often devastating. Jinx destroys Exeggutor lead and similarly isn't afraid of Alakazam while being less afraid of Starmie, but loses to Gengar, the fastest Sleep lead, who then in turn is destroyed by Alakazam and Starmie, who both run Psychic as a lead. Seeing Lapras is often a key game-changing Pokemon in late-game scenarios, where the Sleep Absorber, which is usually a bulky Psychic type, like Starmie, Alakazam, or Jinx, is gone. Of course, Paralyzed Chansey blocks Sleep as well, so that must be kept in mind. Psychic is a powerful stab move for the Pokemon with the best type in the generation, alongside a 1 in 3 chance of dropping special. Other than being self-explanatory in its strength and ease of use, it, alongside full paralysis, can allow its user to possibly even muscle through resistances. Also, because of the mechanics that were found in 2014, it can also help outspeed, because for example, if Starmie uses Psychic and drops Alakazam's special through the secondary effect, Starmie is now faster. This makes for a multifaceted weapon of a move. Its only drawback is its relatively meager 16 PP, which can be an issue since many teams pack multiple Psychics and Recover alone has 32 PP. However, with enough smart play, coverage moves, and just a bit of luck, it'll get the job done. At the end of 2014, it was discovered that Body Slam can't paralyze normal types. This changed the metagame to an extent where early game, Chansey was actually switching into Snorlax, a sight still somewhat common today, especially in the wake of Reflect that popped up as a result. However, we've already gone over why paralysis is so key, and thus the fact remains that it remains a staple even outside of Stab, especially since Red, Blue, and Yellow isn't overflowing with better options. Notably, Rhydon uses it to try and paralyze Starmie, and Lapras tries to hit Alakazam, although it certainly misses the ability to paralyze Chansey with it. It's just your basic attack, great for general use, and little is scarier than Tauros with a free turn to throw one out, because nothing besides Cloyster really switches in well. And even then, Cloyster still doesn't enjoy a crit or paralysis, both of which have great odds of happening. Exeggutor eating a Snorlax Body Slam paralysis is also a common and crippling occurrence. With Freeze being permanent barring hit by a fire move or haze, the former incredibly rare and the latter non-existent, and RBY games often taking a while, it's no wonder that players like to take their time and shoot for what is essentially a one-hit KO. Of course, ice types are immune to the status, but not every team has them, and they don't enjoy fighting Chansey. Always a good desperation move, and also a formidable offensive weapon when one puts themselves in a position to fire off as many as possible. It's also, of course, a fantastic offensive weapon, hitting the common Exeggutor and Zapdos really hard, and non-Chansey neutral targets taking a good amount. Another instantly recognizable classic, this move is a staple on several Pokemon. It's most notably the more fearsome of Zapdos' stabs, but its great coverage in general, especially when paired with an ice move as Starmie, Chansey, and Lapras do. No bells and whistles here other than the fact that it can't paralyze other electric types. It's as tried and true as it gets. possibly the most consistently great move in the history of Pokemon. This is your basic do damage attack and is also as simple as it gets. Exeggutor is the only real resist, and it can get chunked pretty badly by Rhydon's Rock Slide, which also ensures that flying types, mostly Zapdos, don't even think about switching. In this generation, both of these moves still have the defense of the target, and thus have essentially doubled power effect, but their base powers are lower compared to the other generations. So in this gen, their base power is 170 and 130 respectively. It's the same wall-breaking and emergency checking move that enjoyed prominent use for the first 4 generations, and it's on great display here as 2 of the big 4 in Exeggutor and Snorlax tend to run it. Exeggutor just about always, Snorlax very commonly, in addition to other pokes who can use it. RBY counter is one of the weirdest moves ever. It works with the same bounce back premise that it does in the following generations, but rather than being with physical types, it's only versus normal and fighting types. This means no earthquake. It also doesn't have to be used on the same turn as the opponent's attack. In very simple terms, if the last move was a normal or fighting move that dealt damage, it could be countered. So for example, Tauros could use Body Slam as Snorlax switched in, and as Tauros switched out, Snorlax could still use counter on whatever is switched in. It could even counter its own counter as long as nothing else used an attack. However, if Tauros attacked it with Blizzard or Earthquake, counter would fail. Snorlax uses it because it's effective at tanking opposing body slams, whereas Chansey uses it to nab an unexpected surprise KO. The odds of missing any attack, even 100% ones except for Swift, in RBY is 1 out of 256. That is also the chance that either of these moves will not critical hit, provided the speed of the Pokemon using them isn't dirt slow. Persian's excellent speed allows it to act as a second faster Tauros, which is an incredible weapon to have in the late game, and its guaranteed crit means it's always doing decent damage and notably isn't stopped by Reflect. Victory Bell utterly dominates Slowbro as long as it doesn't come into Thunder Wave or Psychic, with its powerful Razor Leafs totally slicing through it, and wrapping, hyper beaming, or sleeping slower Pokemon. Seismic Toss has consistent damage which is unfettered by special drops, and thus less likely to be stalled out as opposed to Bulk Beam, which is why Chansey uses it, especially if it is trying to use support moves and thus has to compromise on coverage. This lets it stay consistent with its output. Alakazam needs extra attacking PP so it doesn't almost instantly run out of Psychics, and this lets it put the hurt on fellow Psychics pretty easily, like Starmie, Exeggutor, Jinx, and opposing Alakazam. The screens are a permanent +2 to their respective defenses in this generation. For Reflect, the instant extra defense helping ward off powerful physical attackers was what made it more usable over alternatives such as Harden, which could boost more but would take more time. Light Screen is rarer, but Chansey sometimes uses it to ward off dangerous special threats late game, in the face of Psychic special drops. Reflect makes it mostly impenetrable barring critical hits and drops, while Snorlax uses it alongside Rest to handle other Snorlax, a notoriously tough task. Slowbro can use it to try and become invincible even in the face of explosions, which are many teams' best ways of handling it, although it usually prefers Thunder Wave. Late game, which is to say non-lead, Alakazam also uses it to try and stomach a hit or two from Tauros as it tries to sweep, although giving up Seismic Toss as a secondary attack option gives it only 16 PP of offense, which can run out quickly in a Psychic-heavy endgame barring some significant luck. An infuriating strategy, these partial trapping moves prevent an opponent from moving. Anyone who's played the original games will remember the phrase, "the Pokemon's attack continues." Luckily, the Pokemon that get these moves are less common and can be destroyed by common attacks, but with safe setup, they can be devastating. With special attack and special defense being combined into a singular special stat, doubling it with Amnesia is pretty powerful. The main user, at least in overuse, is Slowbro, and it is a late game terror, especially since it only needs one stab attack, so it can run Rest and then Thunder Wave for paralysis. Alternatively, it can become completely unkillable by choosing to run Withdraw, which can also help in PP wars. Snorlax can also use it on either offensive sets to jack up its Blizzard, or on defensive sets with Rest, possibly even using Reflect alongside it to be truly unkillable barring crits, to make its mono Ice Beam coverage more powerful. The anime would have you believe that this is the ultimate attack across the generations, but in the first one, it actually is, or at least it's one of them. In every other generation, it's a pretty bad move because of the recharge turn. But in RBY, it still recharges, unless it knocks the opposing Pokemon out. So if Tauros Hyper Beams a 50% Chansey and takes it out, it does not have to recharge the following turn. Of course, this can backfire. If a healthy Rhydon switches into the Hyper Beam aimed at Chansey, then it gets to fire off a free Earthquake against the helpless Tauros. This makes it it a high-risk, high-reward move. While mostly Tauros and Snorlax use it since it deals high damage thanks to stab, Exeggutor also uses it to finish off weakened, paralyzed psychic types like Alakazam, Starmie, Jinx, and other Exeggutor that otherwise would block its sleep powder. Lapras can also try to sneak by Chansey and Alakazam at low ranges with it, whereas otherwise they tank any hit and healed up. And that's it! At long last, that wraps up our series of Gen 1 Battling Explained. And as you can see, Gen 1 moves were pretty out there, to say the least, considering the wacky mechanics that went along with them. The whole thing made for a pretty colorful battling experience and made RBY the unique experience that it is. And with that, I guess I'll take like another year just to get to Gen 2. Nah, I'm just kidding, it'll come soon. Or will it? Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And as for the comments, I guess, comment on what your favorite Gen 1 difference is. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms, yada yada yada. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.